Hey students, welcome to another Mr. Ness screencast. Today's aim is Intro to Unit 5, Political Geography. And here are your objectives. Pause the video, look these objectives over, and get ready to copy some vocab and take some notes. Political geography is the study of how the world is divided up into political units called states. Essentially, this unit is about which people have power and where their power extends to. The word state has several meanings, but in this unit, we're mostly going to use it as a synonym for the word country. A state or country is an area of land that has defined boundaries and is under the control of a specific government. So, within the boundaries or borders of a state, that state's government has the power to make decisions. And that power, the ability of a government to make decisions within the borders of its state, is called sovereignty, and it's also called territoriality. Boundaries are imaginary lines, but they're important because they determine the limits of a government's sovereignty. Within the borders of the United States, for example, the United States government has sovereignty. It gets to make the laws that control the lands within those borders. But once you cross the imaginary border of the United States and enter Mexico or Canada, a different government has sovereignty, and the laws are different. The next three terms are words you already learned in the last unit. Take a moment to review these terms on your own. Now let's look at the history of state development. In other words, how have states evolved over time? The first human societies lasting from the beginning of human history up until about 2000 BCE were stateless. In other words, humans in those societies didn't live in states. That's because there were no formal governments or defined borders of control. An example of a stateless society is a group of Paleolithic hunter-gatherers. These were small groups of 10 to 20 people. They had no centralized government, and there was no agreed upon area of land which they had power over. The first true states are called city-states, and they arose around 2000 BCE, first in Sumer, which is in modern-day Iraq, and then in Greece. These first states were small, with the government's control extending only to the borders of a single city. That's why they're called city-states. Some examples of city-states in Sumer included Ur and Uruk. And some of the city-states in ancient Greece included Sparta and Athens. Beginning around 500 BCE, leaders in some parts of the world extended their power over larger areas of land and created what are called empires. Empires involve many different cultures or ethnicities under the control of a single government. Many empires arose around this time, and two of them include the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire. So, for the first few thousand years of state development, the trend was from smaller states to larger states. But that started to change around 1500, when people in Europe started to reject the idea of an empire in favor of smaller states, called nation-states. The idea of a nation-state is that each ethnicity, remember an ethnicity is a group of people with a shared culture, each ethnicity should control its own state. So instead of many different ethnicities living under the control of a single ruler, each ethnicity would have its own country. This idea started in Europe around 1500, and eventually it spread to other parts of the world, especially those that the Europeans colonized. An example of a nation-state is Denmark. It's a small country inhabited and controlled by people that share the same language, religion, history, etc. The first official declaration of this idea came in 1648 with something called the Treaty of Westphalia. And the Treaty of Westphalia said that states should respect each other's sovereignty and not try to form empires by taking over one another. The fact that this idea began in Europe is the reason why Europe is composed of many small states, and many of them are nation-states. All right, now it's time to review the objectives. And if you don't know the answer to any, rewind the video and look again. I will see you in class. Bye, students.